Hello, and welcome to Gen XYZ Finance and Technology. We are dedicated to gathering valuable information to keep you up to date with what is going on around the world. Everything you need to know about money and tech, we have right here. Before we start, be sure to hit that subscribe button to see more of us and hit that bell button so you'll be one of the first to know about our informative tech videos and practical financial tips. Now on to the video. Global warming is the world's #1 enemy right now. It is a long-term threat that endangers our planet and living conditions of all people on Earth. Of all its effects, one of the most concerning ones is the rising of sea levels. Because of global warming, glaciers and ice sheets are melting and adding more water into the ocean, and the volume of water is increasing as the water's temperature rises. Naturally, many of our habitats and cities we live in are at risk of being flooded sometime in the future. Here we have the top 10 cities most at risk to flooding or sinking due to sea level rise. 1. Jakarta, Indonesia. Jakarta is the capital of Indonesia, a city of 11 million that is estimated to be fully underwater in approximately 30 years, earning the title of the world's fastest sinking city. Due to global warming and rising sea levels, Jakarta is incredibly prone to flooding, which makes the city sink at an alarming rate of 10 centimeters per year. In North Jakarta, the land has fallen 2.5 meters in little over a decade. Because of the sea level's continuous rise and a restriction of access to fresh water, the city has a very limited drinking water supply. This causes the people of Jakarta to rely on groundwater extraction for day-to-day water use. The segregation of North Jakarta and South Jakarta has resulted in Jakarta's water piping infrastructure to be disproportionate. It excludes indigenous Jakartans, making them struggle to find other alternatives for water sources. To combat the threat of their city sinking and the other effects of climate change, Jakarta has built a network of canals and seawalls, but rising seas continue to pose a threat to the city's long-term viability. At this point, despite whatever efforts the Jakartans put into combating these effects, their city will still be sinking at a much faster rate than any other in the world. 2. Houston, USA. The citizens of Houston are no strangers to flooding, with the city experiencing a 10-foot subsidence across 3,200 square miles in the overall Houston-Galveston region in 1979. With heavy groundwater pumping and the city depending heavily on their aquifers, the city of Houston is sinking at a rate of 2 inches per year. Aquifers are rock bodies which are used as natural filters to provide water for Houston's households, businesses, buildings, and farms. However, there is such thing as overpumping these aquifers, causing them to deplete. When they deplete, Houston's land sinks and compresses. As the city sinks, Houston is put in even more danger, becoming increasingly vulnerable to natural disasters like hurricane and flooding. It is even more concerning to realize that hurricanes have been occurring more frequently in their country. A recent superflood showed that Houston is a large metropolitan area at significant risk of flooding, needing upgrades to its power grid and other infrastructure. 3. Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. By 2050, sections of Ho Chi Minh City might be submerged according to a report by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Vietnam's largest metropolis has been sinking at a rate of 80 millimeters per year, an effect of a rapid increase in the city's population over the past 20 years. Effects of climate change and sea levels rising only make Ho Chi Minh's situation even worse. With a population of roughly 9 million, the city's infrastructure has failed to control flooding and keep up with the growing numbers. Consequently, the people of Ho Chi Minh have turned to extracting groundwater in great amounts. Continuous groundwater extraction causes cavities under the surface to collapse, the topsoil to sink, with the city submerging even more. 4. Bangkok, Thailand. In Thailand's capital city, Bangkok, flooding is a common occurrence. Bangkok's population of 10 million people are used to the flooding since they live on an average of 1.5 meters above sea level, putting them dangerously close to rising water. The city is also placed at the south of the Chao Phraya River Basin, which is the cause for frequent floods. Once nicknamed the Venice of the East due to an extensive canal system, Bangkok has unfortunately been struggling to maintain the canals due to increasing urbanization. Another effect of urbanization and groundwater extraction is that the city is sinking twice as quickly as it was 10 years ago, with a rate of 1 to 2 centimeters per year. In 40 years, the city will be fully submerged as predicted by scientists. 5. Dhaka, Bangladesh. In Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, the temperatures are increasing as climate change intensifies. Normally, the people of Dhaka would find it easy to move to other locations when seasonal flooding hits, but increased waterlogging makes the possibility of farming difficult. Waterlogging is the saturation of soil with water, an unsurprising effect of flood. Additionally, crops don't have the ability to bear salt water, causing farms to close and employment rates to be very reduced. In a report by the New York Times, Bangladesh produces only 0.3% of the greenhouse gas emissions that add to the effects of climate change, and unfortunately, they experience some of the worst effects of sea level rising. It's sad because although Bangladesh contributes so little to the overall industrial pollution that leads to climate change, their country will bear a large impact. With their land sinking, rising sea levels meet them halfway to further seal their fate. Their people largely depend on pumping groundwater so they will have water to drink. But pumping groundwater actually causes their land to deflate, so the action actually both benefits and condemns them at the same time. Furthermore, another addition to Bangladesh's long list of problems are the poorly constructed seawalls and infrastructure in need of almost total reconstruction. According to Bangladeshi scientists, most of the population has already migrated from the most low-lying places in the river deltas of the Bay of Bengal. 6. New Orleans, USA. The city of New Orleans is sinking due to both human and environmental causes. Although it depends on how we measure it, only roughly half of Greater New Orleans is above sea level. This is largely because of a mistake made by New Orleanian engineers in the 1900s when they built a drainage system to supposedly protect the city from rising sea levels, but instead they accidentally became the cause of half the city sinking below sea level. Levees ended up starving the land of natural sediments by removing water from the soil, creating air pockets and causing the area to be unstable. Consequently, the wetlands of New Orleans started rapidly sinking only a few decades after the faulty drainage system was built. The massive delta at the mouth of the Mississippi River provides an enormous entry point for water to surge up into New Orleans. With the erosion of sandbars, mangrove forests, and barrier islands, little protection still remains for cities along the Gulf of Mexico. Superstorms and flooding during Hurricane Katrina in 2005 showed how devastating and uncontrollable water can be. Events that used to be referred to as 100-year storms are now happening every few years, leaving residents very little time to rebuild their homes and lives. 7. Miami, USA. In the US, besides Houston and New Orleans, Miami is among the most vulnerable to rising sea levels. However, Miami's sea levels are rising at a quicker pace than any other parts of the world, at a rate of around 1 inch every 3 years because of the current of the ocean. Since Miami's lands are almost entirely low-lying, this makes them prone to flooding, contaminating their drinking water and damaging their buildings and roads. Scientists are predicting that sea level will start rising faster in the next 15 years, which will add 6 more inches, effectively swamping the city. The storm drains in Miami let flood waters flow freely, making it impossible for citizens to not come in contact with water that is most likely combined with sewage and whatever dirt and garbage it picks up along the way. With the flooding, sinking land, and sea levels rising, it's inevitable that huge parts of Miami will eventually become uninhabitable over the next decade or two. The financial effects of this are staggering, as Miami has seen decades of valuable coastline real estate development. As the water encroaches further and more frequently each year, there will be a tipping point where people will have to abandon the city. These mass exoduses from large cities will bankrupt insurance companies and likely cause banks to fail, as claims are made on doomed properties with no future. In the not-so-distant future, we will see cities like Miami become apocalyptic wastelands, covered in many feet of standing water, with buildings crumbling around. Inevitably, a new type of disaster zone squatting will take place, with the homeless availing themselves of whatever shelter they can find in the abandoned high-rises like a dystopian Venice. 8. Lagos, Nigeria. As a coastal city of Nigeria, Lagos is built partially on the mainland and partially on the islands surrounding it. Due to its population, excessive groundwater extraction, and weak drainage system, Lagos is suffering significant climate change effects. Because of all these, a huge chunk of Lagos' southern shelf is continuously sinking, making the Gulf of Guinea inch ever closer. Meanwhile, the Sahara expands further all the time because of hot temperatures and drought. According to a study, Nigeria's coastline is at such a dangerous ground level that a mere increase of inches would have a crushing effect on their citizens' living conditions. The city is being threatened by increasing rainfall due to climate change, which overflows sewers, bringing toxic water into homes and fresh water supplies. 9. Venice, Italy. If you've heard of Venice, it's probably because of the famous Venice canals or the Acqua Alta, the tide that peaks periodically in the northern Adriatic Sea. These peaks surge through Venice and cause partial flooding in the city. Due to the Acqua Alta, Venice has been sinking at a rate of 0.08 inches yearly. According to a recent study, Venice has been sinking for nearly a decade now, but it will be completely submerged sooner than we think. According to a recent report about climate change, the year 2100 is when Venice is expected to be completely beneath the water. 10. Alexandria, Egypt. The city of Alexandria is on a low-lying floodplain. By 2050, sea levels are expected to rise as much as 2 feet, putting a lot of areas of Alexandria at high risk of submerging. Similar to the rate that the sea is rising, the land of Alexandria and the Nile Delta is also sinking. The fact that Alexandria is in the center of the Mediterranean while also backing up to a lake causes the city to be even more vulnerable to the rising sea. According to Egypt's Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, the rate at which the sea levels has been rising for Egypt is an average of 1.8 millimeters per year since 1998. Over the course of the next 20 years, the rate has increased to 2.1 millimeters per year, and since 2012, it rose to 3.2 millimeters yearly. While the seasonal flooding of the Nile River has been part of the rhythm of Egypt's agriculture for millennia, new surges of water could make it impossible to maintain food stability. And that's all for this list of the top 10 cities most at risk for flooding due to sea levels rising. Do you live in a city threatened by sea level rise? Let us know where you are and if you're worried about flooding. Thanks for making it to the end of the video, and as usual, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button to be notified whenever we post a video. See you on our next one!